Welcome, Mind's Eye Visual Guitar Methods. 10 minutes into the last lesson, and I had to re-record it, so here we are again. And you guys don't even know that. But anyways, Mind's Eye Visual Guitar Methods here for another lesson today about intervals and how they make the core of intervals on your fretboard. So this is not just going to be average, these are the intervals lesson. This is going to show you a fretboard core of intervals that you can always know. You can have any interval at your dispense if you know from your root note, from the note that you are, where all the other intervals are around that. And it's a standard pattern that occurs everywhere on your guitar the same way. So it's very helpful to know this little cluster, and that's what we're going to show you today. And the side benefit is also being able to, going right along with my last lesson about chord movements in the same part of the fretboard, and getting new chord movements that you never thought of to create new, like those two chords could be combined with the, I think it's harmonic major. Anyways, before I get lost starting to jam here, harmonic, you can do all kinds of just things that break you out of a boring major scale slump, if you will. If you've gotten bored trying to make music just out of the chords out of the major scale, and wondering like how do borrowed chords work? Where do these other chord progressions come from? How can you make them easy? How can you make melodies over them? A lot of that in the last lesson. But let's get the interval structure understood on the guitar. And when you see what I do here, I've made it as simple as possible. We'll eliminate some of the easy things and some of the obvious things, and then you only have to really know a couple of interval shifts that are really important. So this is going to be really foundational and fundamental for many people. Let's move on. So to start with, just so we can jump right in, we normally see and learn intervals up one string like this, and so here it is described here. All your 12 intervals, and you can find them just like this, no problem, right? But that leaves you kind of always going down the fretboard. So I might make a song that goes 1 4 3 by going 2 and 1. So, you know, a lot of traveling there. Not too bad. It's doable, especially if you're at a campfire or whatever, right? But in a lot of other creative circumstances or song creation or whatever, you want little clusters right here, especially if you're trying to come up with some solo ideas too, to solo over these chords, and you want the chord tones. Ooh, right? So that's where this linear or horizontal approach can just only give you so much, and that's why we're going to learn the cluster today. So you can see here the black, the dark shaded notes, except for the flat 5 there. I shaded them for two reasons. It added clarity to a jumble of numbers with a couple letters in there. Now you can just see, okay, flat third, flat 6, 6. A couple things. But I have highlighted, so it looks like a piano keyboard. Basically, is the first point there. So if you recognize that as the piano keyboard, that's just a great foundational piece of just a little brick of information to have. Let's move on. Now, this flat 5 that's in yellow, because these are, I guess I'm just going to use a word here to describe it, called them enharmonic, meaning two names cover the same exact note. Why would you do that? Much in the same way like C sharp and D flat would be the same note, but a little bit different here. So it's as simple as this for very beginners here. If you're a little stumped over this, or it's a hang up you don't like, it's this easy. I'm going to make a song today, and I'm going to need a scale for this song. I want it to be in the key, a simple key of C. However, it got kind of boring, and I found that if I just change this note, I'm going to make my song out of that, and I'm going to create this great new introduction to a television show that's called The Simpsons, right? Oh, yeah, that's where you can find this raised fourth. You can hear it's got its own cool sound, so that's why people would do that. Okay, and So what I've done there is I've raised the fourth. My scale has 1, 2, 3, but the 4 was changed, slid up to this yellow note. Then the 5, 6, and 7 were the same. So to explain that to other instrumentalists in the that I'm jamming with, that I want to be able to know what's going on, if they didn't already, right? But I've raised the fourth. We're using a scale with a raised fourth. Nice way to explain it. But now, 2 days later, I say, well, scrap that song. I want to make a song, and this one's going to sound a little twisted. It's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, but then I'm going to flatten the 5 for whatever reason, right? And then go 6, 7 root. So if I flatten the 5, I'm going to call that note a flat 5 because I still have the 4. I still have the 3, but I probably would have a flat 3 because that would put 3 notes together. And you typically won't find a scale with chromatic, except for the chromatic scale. It's not too many scales. And the bebop scale is going to have some chromatic in there, but that would be the only reason you would find that. So, but whatever the case may be, you can clearly see, okay, so no one for the rest of this lesson is going to be hung up if I say sharp 4 or flat 5, or if I always call it the flat 5, let's move on. Or basically, if you've always known that as the sharp 4, but I'm calling it the flat 5. Okay, so now we're going to switch our thinking to the root. Everything that I'm going to teach you today is root-centric because that's where intervals come from. You have to have a starting point. I've chosen E. So if I chose this note to play in harmony with E, it's got a sound to it that's different from this sound that I also am playing in harmony with E. And if you go, hey, I like that one, it's a little happier and a little sad. All right, you've just found out the major third and minor third. Awesome, because these intervals all have a sound to them too. They all have an emotional look, a way that they'll add emotion to things, either by themselves in a melody line, or let's say in a chord, something like that. I don't know. So, moving on then, we're going root-centric. So to go root-centric, we're going to change my kind of approach here to what I'm visualizing as a scale, to putting the root right in the middle. By the way, this flat fifth that we're talking about, notice that is the very middle note. And it's also the tritone. That's okay. That note, like, you never use that. But then again, it's most foundational pair of notes in jazz. So a lot of tangents here I could take on music theory because of intervals that we won't go on today, so I'll just be very brief and maybe leave some people hanging with some explanations. But anyways, the tritone, very important to know for what reasons we'll get into today. But that makes the farthest note. It's kind of convenient that it's the one note right in the middle and everything splits evenly. If you can see here, if we put the root in the middle, then going out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notes behind or moving tonally lower from our root, we would get to the flat fifth. And if we move tonally higher from our root, the same exact 6 steps, we're at the same exact interval. So there's a neat little circle that incidentally does coincide with the circle of fifths, but that's another tangent. So anyways, this is what we're doing today. So we're root-centric in this diagram here is going to start helping us picture everything. So here we are, root, and our beginning thought, what we're going to start with here is all the way at the very end, that exact tritone. And let's get into that because I got my notes I was just about to ramble on. What is important about this tritone that they say you never use? It's just it's a alarm, it's an ambulance in Europe. All right, so you're getting pulled over by the Italian police, right? All right, so we've got the flat fifth here at position 6, or down the row here, at the farthest away we can go from the root. But because, you would be a beginner is inclined to think, wow, that flat fifth must be way over here because it's way over here on one string. So how could it be close by? But the way the fretboard is set up, it provides us the way to go to have everything as a neighbor. So in this example, the neighbor is moving up 1 fret would just be a half step. So this is like a half step, but also a different string. Okay, so another thing. Next thing. So now we know where it is. That's cool. And since we don't use it like in general music, and especially in pop, yeah, you probably, this would be the one like, yeah, I never worry about that interval. I never use it. And if you're writing, I'm not being mocking here, but if you were writing maybe very, because I don't know the music that well, I could be totally mistaken here, but if you're writing a general please everybody Justin Bieber song, something from, there's still, you'll probably find a tritone as things go from 5 to the root, but generally speaking, yeah, then you'll find, your just music, triads, and basic stuff. Now, as soon as you start talking, moving into jazz, or just moving to Steely Dan, right? From rock to Steely Dan, then you got tritones everywhere. Full understanding you need for that kind of music. It's right here, the tritones. So that's how important they are in certain circumstances, and unimportant they are in other ones. So that's kind of like why I chose to start here. Now, the interesting thing about this, this is the only interval without a counterpart. What that means is as I show you the intervals here, you're going to see that on each side of this diagram here, there's a corresponding number. When we move out 3, I'm going to show you that. That's actually, I'll show you a different number series here. That'll make sense in a second. But either way, like a 6, this far out from the root, that's going to take 2 steps away from the root and find the 6. If we step 2 steps out from the root here, we find a flat third. And there is a relationship between these 2 intervals, a sonic similarity, if you will. There's a sonic difference because they are different intervals, but there is a sonic similarity. So, and you'll find that with every other interval that we choose, there's a sonic counterpart, except for the flat fifth on each end. Yeah, like if I go out 3 this way, I find a 6th. If I go out 3 this way, I find a flat third. So there's always a different corresponding interval that's the same distance from the root, as far as like wavelengths are concerned. You could even think, but the no matter which side, if I go out 6 notes here, 6 fret movements, you'll find the flat fifth. And it works out for the root that it's, just like the diagram shows, behind, it's an octave pattern. We know that too. And we get this little line of notes. And then you take the octave, because since we've ended up on E, we'll start as is above, so is below, as we've explained a million times on this channel. And find the next series. And in that row, everything inverts. So it would be, just to speak a little, just to be a little bit more easy language here, it just goes root, flat fifth, root, flat fifth, root. It just goes the opposite in this row from here down. Anyways, nothing we really need to tangent on at the moment. So the raised fourth, it's also the raised fourth, as we also mentioned. So yeah, and that's why when we showed you here on the C major scale, and we raised the fourth right there, there's that tritone relationship between the root and that raised fourth right there. So it's the root and raised fourth. So now, but here's the biggest deal about this. This is also the backbone. This little row here and the second row I just showed you, that makes up the spine of the basic core navigation, the simple core of notes that I use to go anywhere on the fretboard and have basically unlocked the fretboard. Does that mean I'm Joe Satriani doing this stuff? No, I got to work on my chops still, yeah. And I don't know if those are coming back. I'm over 50 now, and I think I passed my prime. Anyways, but for you young guys out there, you're in your 20s and you know this stuff, you can now work on your chops, because the where you need to go is solved if you look at my other lessons about fretboard navigation. And what I'm trying to say is that what we use for the simple navigation tool is made up in the basic, the background of what it is, the structure is this row, this tritone row here, just so you know. Anyways, that's how important this little understanding will come up in other things that you learn if you're at that point. I'm always speaking when I give my lessons. I don't know if you've seen my channel a lot here. I'm always speaking from the point of trying to connect to beginners that really can learn things, but you have no. I'm always trying to think about how to explain this to someone who's got no bearings. They've got nothing to grab onto. They still don't know enough to kind of even know, like, why would I want to know a flat third? What is this? What does it do? What I just want to know why a C chord sounded cool in this song or something, you know? And it's all the same stuff. But I got off on a tangent there. But anyways, the way I explain things, not like that. That just got really confusing, I think. But the way I explain things is trying to be towards a beginner sometimes, in case you get a little annoyed with the redundance if you're a intermediate student. Root 66, let's be dumb. Now, we know that you're contacting the from the root to the 6, root 6, root 6, root 6. Get your kicks on Route 66. Hey, cool, right? So let's call it Route 66. I don't know. I thought it was funny when I made the lesson. I'm sorry. Route 66, come on, it's cool. It's an American pastime, and you're in Europe watching the lesson, and you don't care about Route 66. Okay, I don't know. Anyways, let me get my wire out of here, out of the camera view. It's not helping anything. Okay, so this very important, as we had discussed, for dominant and diminished concepts. Every time someone's trying to explain, well, this is the dominant chord, or, well, there's a relationship to the diminished, and this is what you can do with diminished. Notice I just changed the root there. Same guts. Relationship between dominant and diminished. Anyways, they're from the same scale. The C major scale was G dominant and B diminished. Half diminished, right? Because it's sorry. Okay. So it's very important for those concepts. If you're trying to step into jazz, you're going to be tritoning all day long, rocking and rolling all week long. Name that show in the comments, and I won't give you anything, but it'll be interesting to see if anybody watches this lessons this intently, and it'll be like, oh, that was Sunday, Monday. And you also have to be as old as me, unless you watch a lot of really old reruns. Okay, so we've covered the tritone. So let's get to the first stop down our road. Look we're headed down Route 66 with a tritone, right? What are we going to do when we're on this long road trip? What are we going to see a lot of? And where are we going to probably want to stop eventually? At McIntervals, right? You got to go to McIntervals to get the McInterval shake, get the McInterval burger, right? The big McInterval. So we're going to go to, no, you want a quarter McInterval. This guy wants to just hold the ketchup. Sorry, I made you guys hungry now. Don't eat that food. I would never want to advertise for that place. But anyways, I just did. The interval movement, but we had to use these colors to really, bring it out. And to me, I use some synthesia. I don't know, the thing where they put some people put colors to music. I try to do my best to do that, and I kind of do think, a 5, the 5 is just really, it's always going to be a big, bright interval going to that green root. I don't know. I've talked about different colors for intervals before, so if you watch the channel, you might be like, oh, that's different than what you said before. But so in this lesson, this is what I chose. Anyway, so the 5 and the 4, they go together like red and yellow. And so these are as common as the fast food chain. So they're like the first thing you're going to, interval you're going to want to know is your 5th and your 4th, right? That was kind of cool sounding. A bunch of 4ths and 5ths movements there. So, so what you have is there's just so much about the 4 and the 5 are like everything about music. So that's why you're going to, know where these are. And we probably already do. So we can kind of say, and they're real close to the root, and they're probably the most recognizable: straight above, straight below. Now, typically speaking, I'd want to think about the fifth when I was a beginner too. My fifth was always here. Oh, I need a fifth here. And it was a while later. It took me a lot because I had just known that and pinned it as such an important thing, root and five, because, you know, power chords, learning Black Sabbath and stuff. And the blues, okay? You put a 5 there, like a power chord, but that's just you're looking at the octave. It was a little while before I realized, you know, oh yeah, 5 is like just straight above wherever I am. There's always a 5, and that helps me when I'm down here and I'm playing a chord right here. Here's a G major triad, and I want to move a 5, and you can hear the relationship there. 1 5 5 1. There's a more classic 5-1. I wanted to give you guys the sonic resolution there. D dominant, G major triad, played with an open chord. So you got this standard interval movement. Look, it's going to be the blues. You're going to know this root. You heard 1 4 5. If you're a beginner and you're like, oh yeah, that I have heard 1 4 5 before, and is that this? So if I'm putting that together for you, that's awesome. That's a great thing. That basically the point of this lesson for a beginner. Yeah, that's the same thing. Root 4 5. So you know, it's just going to be in rock. You're going to want to know, you know, your power chord 5, maybe a 4. You're going to suspend a chord. Maybe you're trying to play. You may wonder where all that cool sound comes from. What starts out as normal chords, there's E minor. But there's that real cool bit. Hey, what do you know? There's that 4. As a matter of fact, that's a sharp 4. Yeah, tritone, sharp 4. Not what we were talking about, but this chord, this is the 4 compared to the 1, the 5, the flatted 7. How can you know all those intervals? Stay tuned. Let's move on. All right, jazz. We talked about it. sus4 chords. We just talked about that. You're going to use that 4 interval there whenever you need a sus4 or find your other 4. An octave higher, whatever. Your 5 of 5. I want to know where I'm playing this G dominant 5, but I want to lead into it with a 5 of 5, so I'm going to know where my interval of a 5 is. I can come from above and do a 5. All 5 of 5 5. I don't think it works when you go 5 of 5 of 5. It didn't really sound that sonically connected to me, but the first 2 did. The 5, A7, going to D7. All right, so I don't know if it's supposed to be. You know, here I am giving lessons on the internet and on YouTube. He's not familiar with 5 of 5 yet. But anyways, so I personally I liked it better from higher to lower, D up high, G down low, then lower to higher. Okay. Now, you know what? Yeah, it was a 5. But we moved to 4. That's probably why it wasn't as sonically interesting. Okay, never mind. So, because like here, playing the 5, but you're still moving to 4. Okay, never mind. I'm tangenting and thinking about thoughts when I should be giving you guys a lesson. It's in chord construction. Okay, the root and the 5. And, okay, yeah, maybe the 4, but if you want that suspended chord. But root and 5, that's, you know, another great thing to know for beginners here to tangent. You can skip ahead if you already know this. Root and 5, they make like a shell. Like, sure, they're here, and the power chord. And when you learn that as a beginner, you know, it's kind of so misleading. It really doesn't give you that what you're really looking for is the triad harmonies and everything that you can do with triads, and then what you can do with the 7 chords, or 4-note chords. So, when you learn it here, it's just kind of like look, the root and the 5, as you can hear, are just accomplices. They are so together in all music, and harmonically and physically in the wavelengths and everything, and in the math. So, but if you take a root and you add the 5 way up high, like this, now they're still together in the same sonic way, but there's room in the middle for some further harmony. So now instead of a dyad of a root and 5, you can add some harmony right in the middle where it should be, and create yourself a nice triadic harmony in standard position. Root, 3rd, 5th. Root minor, 3rd, 5th. How do we find those intervals? Let's move on here. So power chords, chordals. Oh yeah, these chordals. Sorry, screwed those up here. Thought that sounded good with a whammy bar. Chordals would be good. You start making some fusion music. You'll find out where all those cats are at. All right, so on and on. And we went over there. Were these are also counterparts of each other in the way that they're. You'll hear for example, cadence. The 5 to the 1 is considered a perfect cadence, and then the other one is a I can't remember what's a 4 to 1 called. You guys put it in the comments out there. But anyways, it's like a deceptive cadence or implied cadence or something like that. It's just I'm not going to do it, but it's just another way to it's going to be the other one that really wants to resolve to the root, but not as much as the 5. So anyways, you can see like they both are the ones that will fully resolve to the root, or resolve to the root, probably the best of all, harmonically, the most harmonically satisfying of all the other chords in the scale. So that's the counterpart kind of thing you can see there. So let's fill in this a little bit more. Now what we're going to do here is a process of elimination. We're going to take a big chunk of this process and make it really easy, because check this out. Some root movement is going to be really easy and not require much of anything. Like if my roots, for some reason, my root is just moving up a half step, and my chord is staying the same, or my chord is maybe, even if I go from major to minor. And some of these might sound really alien when you hear them, especially with the when your ear is developed into something I was just playing before. It's not very common, but it does work. There is music that does that goes up a half step and changes from major to minor, but let's just assume we're going one major chord to major. It's just 1 fret. You're just taking your shape, and you're just responsible to do everything you were doing, everything you knew, and move it up 1 fret. So who needs to know that? So we can basically say going up 1 fret and going down, simple. So we can we don't have to know any jump or how to change chords unless we're going from major to minor. And all I did when I did that was take my shape here, my triad shape. This is the shape that has the root on bottom. It comes from the C shape. But we're not using that pinky root. We're just using these 3, the gut notes. And we still get a root. Down there, so we got root, 3rd, 5th. Root, 3rd, 5. Okay? Now, if I want to move that up 1 fret, but I want to change it to minor, I know that this shape just turns into this shape to be minor, because there's a 3rd, and I'm lowering the 3rd. So I need this shape up 1 fret. So it's just this. Na, 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 na. So now you're thinking, oh, okay, harmonic minor. As we get that tonality in our ears, suddenly these chords kind of do make some sense together, even if they sounded a little alien at first. It may just not be the mood you're in. All of these chords that you put together, any one of them, they're all moods. They can all express something. There's no wrong chords. See, that's where the people, they get confused about music theory, and then they have a fear of music theory. Oh, music theory will make you boring. Now everything's like a vanilla ice cream song. What's this deal? You know, this isn't in music theory. How come it sounds good? Because theory isn't the rules, like everybody says. Theory is just the description, so you can explain what you did and explain things to other musicians and conceptualize some basic foundational things so you can know why the different thing is working to do what it does. So that being said, and you can use some of this interval information when you're building chords to know, like, hey, if I add this interval here, it may give me this different sound that this, you know, even though this is a major interval, kind of makes that chord give it a little bit of a more sentimental sound. Like, here's a C triad. Here's a C. Let's play a B and call it a C. All right, so here's a C. Regular happy triad C. Anyways, so you added a 7 in there, a major 7, a raised 7, and it gives it a little bit more of a, you had a major interval in there, and it gives it a little sound there. Okay, anyways, let's move on. Okay, so when we move a whole step, it's really it's not much different. And even if we change, now that sounds like it's in key. You know why? Because like, for example, if this was the key of C or the key of G, for example, this is a G chord. What's the next interval in the scale is going to be A, and the chord is going to be A minor. If you got to know your chord scale. It's very easy to know this stuff and just practice it. And when you're a beginner, it's like, oh, I got to learn that too. Jeez. But no, it'll seem like okay, something at first, and then when you know it, when you just go, okay, it's that, you're gonna be like, oh, that's so easy. So, anyways, that's why there's this congruent sound, and we didn't need the harmonic minor or major scale, because those were in the regular. You'll find that in a regular C major scale or G major scale or whatever. Okay, in that particular instance, 1 to 2, 1 to 2, G major. All right, so and you're not limited. I'm not saying that you're limited. You can conceptualize a whole bunch of other stuff just based on those triads, but we're not going there today. So look at a whole step up, whole step down. Going to be very easy. In a lot of songs, that'll just move the exact same chord up. The whole song is shifting up a key this way. Then it's called the trucker gear shift modulation. You just or a lot of times it's moving upward, like oh, we're living on a prayer, and then it's the end of the song goes up. And some Michael Jackson does that too. All right, so basically you just shift up or down 1 or 2 frets. Let's move on. Boom. And so now what do we got here? Now we're getting into the final little bits here. Go back to visualize that here. So let's look up here. All we got left, if we've covered this real estate, the easy tritone, the 4s and 5s, we totally know those. We totally know the trucker gear shift. Just moving up a couple frets if we need to. I mean, in theory, you could even move up a third, but then it becomes more convenient to actually move your root a fret, and then you're just changing chord shapes in the same spot, and it just has a better sound. Most people would agree. So you can see all we've got left are the pair of 6s and the pair of 3s, and you'll see why I didn't call it a sharp 5, even though probably as per typical music theory and typical explorations and modifications and things you're going to do, you're going to be thinking, oh, I've got this is a 5, but this chord has a sharp 5. We need the sharp 5 for this. We need a sharp 5 for that. So you'll call it a sharp 5 a lot because you're most often messing around with the root. But there are a lot of times where you're talking about a flat 6, same exact note, but you're talking about the natural minor scale because it has the flat 6. And that's what you're dealing with. That's what's the deal we're dealing in. Thanks for example. All right, so now we just got 6 to flat 6 and flat third to third. Let's check it out. Where are these intervals? Where are you? So we'll start with a 6 and get those there. So we'll see that those are up here. And then we're going to see the relationship between these and the thirds, which is probably visually maybe the most complex. It's like the opposite of the tritone. It's, this way, and then we got that way. I'll show you that in a second. And then you can see with that relationship why they're sonically similar, even though there's some difference. Let's explain. So here they are. Here it is isolated, so you can see it. It's root. Here's my root. I'm going to establish a root here in D. Sorry. Oh, wait. Okay, I'm going to establish a root in D, and I'm going to pick very carefully so I don't... So we got an interesting sound there. Message in a bottle. Oh, okay. Let me see what they were doing there. So, but we're only playing the root and the 5, so we don't really have any triads happening yet. But either way, you got that root movement. Now let's reverse everything. Let me take that A sharp and make that the root. So there it was, the longer starting the pulses and go into the... Now there we just moved a flat third, which you'll see in the next page. So there's the same two notes. Sonic similarity is just which one did you establish as the root, and you have to do that sonically, and you can do that by starting on it and emphasizing it. You just got to basically kind of sonically communicate to the listener that this is the starting, this is the root, this is the tonal gravity here, and this is where we're going and perhaps coming back to. Or going, traveling away, and then coming back to. Okay, so moving on here, we've got then the... we've got both. Let's do the other one here, the regular 6. So you can hear that one is a little bit more, aside from the bad note there, a little bit more, there's something congruent about it. Well, that's because that's typical. That's going to be found all over the major scale. That would be major to minor. And you can find it here, minor to minor. Sorry, I just went on a tangent there and didn't do anything I wanted to do. Okay, but anyways, so you can hear that there's a little bit more congruent there with the regular 6. It's a very common interval change. Boom, let's go here. So now we can see here is the thirds isolated, and you can see it's like the inverse geometry of the 6s. And then there's a sonic relation with the geometry also equals the sonic geometry. It's really cool on this guitar fretboard, I really think. So, like for example, here if we had our root, I'll just put it here on the E again, since we've been dealing with E a lot. Root happy third, flat 6, oh yeah, and here's the 6 interval with that low E, flat 6. So there's a difference, right? When you just play them like that, there is what makes a major third different from a flat 6. They're not exactly the same, but movement-wise, definitely there's a clash there, a lot of dissonance in there with a flat 6 playing in close proximity to the root, because it really wants to go down to a 5. That's why. Now it's augmented. So, yeah. So there's that's going to have a whole bunch of different aspects and musical functions. However, in chord movement, you have to do some distinguishing because, or just make it obvious where your root is if you're just composing your own music, because the movement is the same. So there's like there's an emotion that happens. So, it's going to be really, even though we change notes here. So there's going to be that same sonicness, but it's going to be different if you change where the root is. Hey, there's a beginning to a cool fusion song. You guys can go ahead and use it. So moving on there. Now all we got to do, that's it. Those are all the intervals. And now you know the importance of the 3s and the 6s, and there's a lot there musically. I really can't go into the tangent of how much you can do with these. Like we just got this little cool fusion intro just by mixing around what we were doing with the 3rd and the 6th combined with our perceived root of low E there. Little haunting, serious I'm hearing in there. Cool. It's got an emotion. That's all we want. So now all we need to do is deal with that string change. I'll give you a little heads up here, because this core, you might say, hey, I'm playing it here and your stuff ain't working here. Well, that's because you're going over the red string change here. String skip between the G and the B string everybody talks about. And so all it is everything here. I don't know if you can see here, but it usually shows the G row here. This is row G on my screen, and I got some little arrows here showing that this is going that way. I got to reverse my hands for the screen. Oh my gosh, toward the Okay, everything just got stupid here. So my headstock is different from the... Yeah, I'm opposite of the... This is dumb. Anyways, I'm sorry, my friends. I wonder if I should do this like opposite. If I should be showing like a mirror image of this. But no, every diagram I've seen is like looking this way. Okay, guys, never mind. Because that's how you play it down here. Okay, look, I'm being stupid. So... when you cross the G to B string, everything moves this way. See which way my cursor's going? Okay, so we've got everything on the B and E in the yellow zone there. So we've got, and you can see it from the diagram. I'm sorry I'm belaboring this point so much, but you see from root to 5th, the 5 would normally be straight above the root, so that's going to put it down there. Now, because coming from the B to the G is opposite of your thinking of what's been changed going from G to B, that always threw me off as a beginner. So it was diagrams like this that kind of stick in my head and go, if I'm here and I'm like, if I need this, if I have this chord with my root here and I need to move down a 5th, I'm going to think about this interval. Where I used to get confused, is it this one? Does it move up? It's not that one? Is it? So... Crazy Train chord change. 1-5-1-5-1-5 is what you're hearing. All right, so it's not the whole chord change, but I know that's in there somewhere. Going second time I mentioned I got Ozzy on the mind. You might see this 5 years in the future, but as we make this video, it was just a few I think it just late last week, Ozzy Osbourne has passed away. Rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne. Black Sabbath, foundational to me playing guitar. But so was Rush and Pink Floyd and everybody else. So, anyways, but hats off to Black Sabbath, and Ozzy. All right, so moving on there. So when we shift there, everything goes there. There's one more shift we got to think about. That's if we only got the bottom row over the line. Then if I have a 3 down below, what's gonna have a 3? Well, let's look at root 3/5. Let's find our fundamental colors. Also, it wasn't my intention when I started, but I realized, hey, the root 3rd 5th, I made the fundamental colors of the color system: green, red, green, blue. All right. So here. Chord is straight up and down. Now I want to move a 4, which is the same as a 5, right? That's why you just heard the same chord again. Am I moving 1 to 5? That's more like 1 to 4. But here, if that's the 1, I'm moving to a 5, even though I went down lower. That would be like G to D. All right. G to D to D to D. So beyond that, I think you guys can get what else is going on here. And I'll just kind of leave you guys with all of this today. I had one more sheet here, and here's this. I think I got these. You know what I did? I did those backwards. I was supposed to do this one first to show you as we were moving down. First thing you're going to realize, so that was not very helpful for me, but at 30 minutes in or whatever, probably 45 now, I'm not redoing the lesson. So when we went over this, then we went over that, right? And now we're here going, here's a triad shape extracted. Once again, root 3rd 5. So I don't know. When I set up these lessons, sometimes in my head the lesson is going on, and I'll make a page that I think I'm going to get to. But for example, I guess not for example, but just what I was showing here is another pulling the root 3rd 5th out of this pictogram here, and you can see like this, how to take this shape, and now we're talking about knowing triads. And then simply making a minor triad. Which one has to change? The one that's the 3rd. It's got to get lowered. Should actually just move that up so it's on A. I can use the open root. Minor. Major. If I want to take this root here, and now I want to go to a major chord that's a 3rd away from I like that sound. I like a major chord a 3rd away from another major chord. It's not in the major scale. I'm going to have to find something else. I'll either play something separate for each chord. You can do that, or I'll find a scale that combines both. You can figure that out too. Most of these will have a scale that works over both, and now you kind of know why guitarists, when they're looking at Larry Carlton walked in. Okay, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and just imagine something here. I'm just gonna guess here, but I bet when Larry Carlton walked in to do Kid Charlemagne, and what made his solo probably better than the rest was his ability to think like a jazzer and take each chord movement and like probably assemble them into like companions, and then he knew where to be for each little thing. If you hear, there's a bunch of phrases in that solo. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, trying the solo to Kid Charlemagne is not the idea I had for this lesson, so let me just stop right now. Sorry. But I know the whole solo. Executing it as good as he did, yeah, probably not. So anyways, there you go with the knowing these triad shapes and the intervals, chords, what they, so you just start to know everything, and you can put things together, and your chord solo, why, certain things are going to do what they do, and why you might want to raise the fifth to a sixth, because that makes another minor shape. That would be like a diminished. That's a major. Anyway, so what did I just do there? I went from... I just follow my root movement. What were the octaves of the intervals of my roots? So I went from a C to a G. So I went from C major to G as a root to a 5. And how can we see that in our little cluster here? Here's our 5 chord root. Now this shape is rootless, but there's a 7. So I'm sorry, the root from the major 7. So in essence, we went my root went here. Root for this chord shape, and it shows here. I went from a G to a C, from a root to 4. From the 5 chord to the root, but the interval was a 4. And so you can see the counterpart kind of thinking working there. But a little confusing. But you can see what the deal is with the cluster here and how it works, and all you really need to memorize is the thirds and the sixes. Everything else is kind of laid out very easily. So next time you're building a chord and you need that interval, or you got a chord shape and you want to go somewhere but you don't know, like for example, hold on a second. So I was talking about earlier when I left on a tangent here. We never came back to making a major chord go up a major third. So that would be, that's B to G, G to B. So I'm going. Pretty cool, but that's a lot of real estate. How can I find that as neighbors in both spots? So let's try this. We got a G, and we know we're going to B major. So we got a G, we're going to B major. But where's the B? I don't know where my B note is. I kind of fuzzy on note names, but here's what I do know. I'm going to major third. Wait, so there's my root. Now the root of my next chord needs to be on this 3. I'm going a third away. There's the third. So I'm going to use, and I didn't leave my 4-3-2 string group here, the D, G, or B strings, right? So I'm going to use those shapes, and my root over here where the blue 3 is, I know that shape is going to be this triad shape, your standard issue triad shape. So I'm going from an inversion. As long as you use inversions, you can find clusters of chords. Now, if somebody tells you how to do that, you're thinking, oh, okay, C, no, so that should be here. Where's the inversion? And then you're taking this long way to some of these easy concepts. People tell, oh, you just do this, and then, but you're thinking about how you would accomplish that, and it becomes real easy, and you're not realizing you got to go back to fundamentals. You got to be able to do that really quick in your mind. Go to fundamentals and then expand on things. So these are the fundamentals that you need. You go like, oh, okay, well, oh, okay, we're going to a B, we want to do this chord progression of a major interval because it's going to bring on this unique scale and a unique sound to our song. So that's what we want. it is right in one spot. With this, look how simple the fingering is. It's this to this. And there's no worry about sliding into the wrong thing. I'm keeping some of the notes are staying where they are. The third stays where it is because they both use that note. 3 becomes the root for the next chord. So, way easier to play, way easier to... Wasn't the greatest solo I ever played, but that would work for. Here I am just getting into my own mind on I got recording on. I'm making a lesson. So anyways, I was trying to work something out. But then I tried pentatonic, and I'm like, why am I trying pentatonic over that? It's not really going to be the thing I want. But I had one note that worked. Okay, that's it for the lesson today. Thank you for holding on as long as you did. You probably shut off already, so you're not even listening to this. I already said the things I needed to say in the beginning about, like, share, and subscribe. So thank you very much for watching. If this was impactful for you, just at the very least, leave a comment. Not too many people comment on the videos. It's very important for the YouTube algorithm. So leave a comment, and we'll go from there. I'll leave you guys alone. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll go from there. Thanks.